Welcome to the Chaos Fortress. In today's mod spotlight, the forces of the Empire, led by Karl Franz and Volkmar the Grim, have embarked on a crusade against the Chaos Warriors of Slaneesh. Ultimately, they seek to stamp out the seed of corruption and perversion before it has the opportunity to spread to the Empire. This 2v2 battle will take place using the Ultimate Chaos mod, as well as the Chaos Fortress custom map, both of which can be found in the description below. A big thanks to Italian Spartacus, Black Iron, and the Gobbo King for taking part in this showdown. Lastly, I'd also like to thank Steelblade for creating this outstanding mod. And without further ado, let the Crusades begin. And now we're here with a 2v2 battle between the Chaos Warriors of Slaneesh, who are going to be facing off against the Empire Crusade. So let's go ahead and take a look at the unique army composition of the Warriors of Slaneesh, and guys, we can go from there. So over here in the front line, I'm going to be piloting this Slaneesh army on this side of the fortress, and Italian Spartacus is going to be manning the far side. Out in the open field, you can see that the forces of Karl Franz and Volkmar the Grim are rapidly advancing on the fortress, already taking some hell cannon fire. So over here for the Warriors of Slaneesh, I do have some standard Warriors of Slaneesh, which have pretty good weapon strength. That's one of the characteristics that really sets them apart from the other Chaos Gods, is that they have very high weapon strength. Granted, the Warriors of Khorne do have higher melee attack, so they hit more consistently, and they do have the kill, maim, burn buff that makes them hit really, really hard for short periods of time. But the Warriors of Slaneesh, in terms of, sustained combat stats, are pretty good. They do have 63 weapon strength, which is incredibly high, but guys, they also do cost about 1,100 resources, so they are not cheap. On top of that, they do have 36 melee attack, 42 melee defense, and they do have, decent armor and leadership. Something to note about these guys, the Warriors of Slaneesh, they don't really have a lot of unique abilities themselves, but once you start getting to the more elite Slaneesh units that I'll show you guys in a moment, they absolutely do. Over here on the far side, I do have some Chaos Cultists, and just look how awesome the detail is on these guys. I mean, they're basically, the flagellant models that have these skulls, and you can see there's actually like a mark of chaos up there, which is so awesome. And the Cultists are kind of like flagellants. They're not unbreakable, but they have similar combat stats, and, very, very cool art on those guys. And something like that I really noticed about the Warriors of Slaneesh is there's like tons of detail. You can see on their torsos right here, they actually have like a tattoo of Slaneesh, and then they have these kind of nipple chains going on, which is pretty interesting stuff. Over here in the back, I do have a Chaos Lord of Slaneesh myself. Italian Spartacus also has one, and these guys are awesome. Very, very good lords. One of the better ones in the mod, in my opinion. Granted, I still think the Nurgle and Tzeentch ones are a little bit better, but these guys are definitely pretty close in suit. So they have an ability called Delightful Pain, which gives them 34 melee defense, 34 melee attack, and imbue poison. On top of that, they do also have Ignore Pain. So this ability, kind of in line with the sadism of the Slaneesh folk, it just essentially heals them. It makes them ignore the pain, and also, heals any damage they've taken. So it is on a 2-minute cooldown, but it's a very nice, unique ability, and I definitely found it to be pretty useful in this battle. On top of that, he does have Rapturous Pleasure. So this gives all nearby units 12% weapon damage, 8% armor piercing damage, and 4 leadership. And he also does have Perverse Aura, which does kind of something similar, but on a smaller scale. Over here, he does have the Ecstasy of Slaughter, which replenishes hit points of nearby combatants. Or I think it's just himself, actually, but, so he does have Perpetual Healing and a big burst heal from the looking for it, Ignore Pain. So very cool lord, definitely some good flavor there. I do have the Chaos Sorcerer of Fire, which essentially has the spells of Slaneesh. So if we go ahead and take a look here, let's go ahead and pause and mouse over this. He does have some neat abilities. So he has the Bliss of Torment. So pain fuels his sorcerer spellcasting. So when he's in melee fighting, he actually, I think it augments his winds of magic. Very, very, very neat stuff there. On top of that, he does have the Cacophonic Choir, which is a massive morale shock. So unfortunately, our opponents do have a very Crusade-centric army, so it's not going to be as great. But what this does is it does negative 30 leadership to like everyone in a small radius. So you can like send this guy in and do like a huge leadership bomb, which is so cool. We were playtesting it against like the Orcs and Greenskins, and it is incredibly powerful at breaking the line. Aside from that, we do have the Slicing Shard. So this ability only works if something's running. So as the tooltip suggests, Slaneesh hates it when his playthings run. The spell viciously punishes enemies who would flee the Dark Prince's games. So just awesome lore, awesome thematics there. Essentially, if a unit is like broken or routing, he can like nuke them and do a ton of damage. On top of that, we do have the Aura of Acquiescence, I believe. Yeah, so it imbues a unit with fear, kind of like the aspect of the Dread Knight, and it also does lower the melee attack and melee defense of nearby units. And last but not least, we do have the Ecstatic Seizure. So that essentially like forces unit to go into seizures, and essentially is like the effigy of Deget. Very, very neat stuff there. In the back, we do have these very, very cool units. So these are basically the elite of the Slaneesh infantry. Granted, I think they're a little bit underpowered. They can get like beaten down pretty bad by like greatswords and things like that because they only come in 38 models. Hence, they have very low kind of low base HP, and they can go down pretty quick to like burst damaging cannons. But they hit like trucks. They have 85 weapon strength, very low melee defense at only 27, 52 melee attack, and are pretty much unbreakable for the most part. They also do have a unique aura themselves, which is the Intoxicating Aura. So check that out right there. So units nearby in a 30-meter radius get negative 15% speed. So these are the Slaneesh's Blessed. I like them quite a bit. Granted, I don't think they're as good as like Nurgle's Plague Reapers and things like that, but still a pretty neat unit. Up here on the top, we do have some Lancers of Slaneesh, and these guys are like anti-large infantry. They work pretty well in the front line. They have good leadership. They also have pretty good melee defense at 48, and also do have an anti-large bonus with somewhat decent armor-piercing damage at 18. We have a Hell Cannon here. We also do have a Champion of Slaneesh, which is pretty cool looking. It doesn't have any unique abilities per se, but it's a decent combatant. So over here, we do have another contingent of troops, just some Warriors of Slaneesh mixed in with some Cultists, which are just basically, you know, flagellants that are breakable. So pretty much a similar army for Italian Spartacus over on the far side. I do also have my Riders of Slaneesh. So these guys are probably one of my favorite units in the mod. They are basically like Marauder Horsemen. They can't throw while they're moving, so they have to set up, but they have an anti-large weapon strength of 38 in melee. So great utility. They can throw and do some heavy damage with their throwing weapons with the 28 missile damage, but in melee, they actually wreck enemy cav. So very cool kind of dual purpose from these guys. Over here, Italian Spartacus has a pretty similar army. He has a Hell Cannon set up here. In the front, you can see he does have his Warriors of Slaneesh. He also has some Knights of Slaneesh. So these are basically the Slaneesh standard cav. So these guys, not quite as bursty as like the Chaos Knights of their Khorne Chaos Knights, but these guys are pretty cool nonetheless. They have good weapon strength, somewhat low defensive stats, but just, you know, kind of standard rank and file knight over here. On the wall, he does have some Riders of Slaneesh himself, backed up by a Chaos Sorcerer of Fire, which is essentially a Slaneesh caster. And that's pretty much it. Both of our armies are pretty similar. We wanted to try and showcase as many of these new units as we possibly could. So guys, now let's go ahead and take a look at the Empire Crusade, who is quickly advancing. They do have a Light Wizard here with Nets of Amnitok. You can see Karl Franz decided to come on the ground and even the playing field a little bit. He's got his hammer. He's ready to party. A bunch of flagellants mixed in with some greatswords who are going to be very good against our heavily armored Slaneesh warriors. And one thing we're definitely going to struggle with is Slaneesh didn't have a ton of armor piercing, so we're going to have trouble getting through the greatswords. They also have handgunners back here. We do have a witch hunter in the back, so again, going full on thematic as far as the Crusade goes. He has some Demogryph Knights on the far side. I believe he does have some Knights of the Blazing Sun, but he also has the Hammer of the Witches, another witch hunter over here, so going to be a lot of accusation going on in regards to the heresy. For this Empire player over here, the mighty Gabo King with Volkmar the Grim, he is on his chariot, which is just awesome. It's definitely going to be great for riding through our front line here. He does also have a Celestial Wizard, so he's going to be dropping some heavy bombs, a Warrior Priest over here in the front line, and a ton of Flagellants. So this is just going to be such a cool battle. They even have the Templehof Luminarch, so it's going to be very scary for some of our lords here. So anyways, guys, without further ado, let's let this heretical battle begin. So over here in the front, you can see they do use their Nets of Amnitok, and guys, they are going to drop a comet on us using the Celestial Magic, and I think he did overcast it, so it's going to come down from the heavens and crush these perverse warriors, but it actually didn't do as much damage as we thought. I think it's a little better against infantry, but it still does do quite a bit of HP damage, and these guys don't have any means of healing, so any damage he can do is going to be very powerful. You can also see the Templehof Luminarch is going to be coming in here, and it just barely misses those guys. It looks like it actually clips the wing of some of these guys, so I immediately decided to run back into the keep because I was just getting barraged. I wasn't expecting that much firepower, but Volkmar and the boys are ready to party. Over here on the far side, you can see the Hell Cannon is shooting into some of these troops and is making some okay contact, slamming into some of these greatswords as they advance on this Chaos Keep, and just look how freaking cool this map looks. It's definitely one of my favorites. Something that we didn't really take advantage of was defending the high ground, but we figured if we had troops up on the high ground, then we would have just simply lost the army losses before they could get down to reinforce. So we decided to just try and hold the gates as best we could. You can see over here on the far side, the Flagellants are taking a ton of damage in Italian Spartacus's front line. The Warriors of Slaneesh are about to advance. So he has some Lancers in the front side, and you can see these Chaos Cultists have engaged against the Flagellants, so definitely a bit of a mirror match here. So these guys are just going to get down and dirty in the trenches. You can also see the Lancers, or the Riders of Slaneesh up on the high ground, are going to be able to throw their spears. So you can see there's also some magic. The Baroness Time Warp giving them 24% speed as well as 34 melee attack. So the Flagellants will trade pretty well with these cultists, and you can also see that this Chaos Sorcerer up here looks to be casting some sort of a spell here in kind of the pit of this battle. I'm not sure what it is, but hopefully we'll see that in just a moment. The heavy troops are coming in. The Warriors of Slaneesh are also going to jump into this battle, and they'll definitely do very well against the Flagellants. These guys have 55 weapon strength, so they will just cut these guys to pieces. And you can see the Warriors of Slaneesh are doing massive burst damage while the Hell Cannon is raining fire on these guys in the back, these greatswords who are pushing in. Over here on my side of the battle, you can see the battle has come underway. Volkmar the Grim and his Flagellants and some of the Sigmar Sons and his handgunners are getting ready to charge the gates. You can see that fire in the background, that fiery pillar, which is just so cool. I really like what they can do with the custom maps. So the Flagellants are going to charge in. You can see the Riders over here kind of getting over on the side so they can get a good throwing angle, and the Warriors of Slaneesh are getting ready to engage them on the gate. You can also see that this Celestial Wizard is up here. I did use the Ecstatic Seizures on him, so he's not able to move, and then my Riders of Slaneesh are going to go throw some spears. But in the meantime, the Cultists are going to slam into these Flagellants. You can also see the Warriors of Slaneesh are going to charge in and start bursting these guys down as hard as possible. So over here, you can see I was keeping some troops in reserve just in case he broke through and started using some good bombardments. I really wanted to make sure that, I didn't take a ton of damage. You can also see a great bombardment ability coming down from the mighty Volkmar and his forces here. I believe this is going to be a comet, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember quite what it was, but anyways, due to the long cast time, I'm pretty sure it is a comet. So it's going to come down right on top of my Slaneesh forces and just do massive damage. You can just see fire, well, I wouldn't say fire and brimstone, but just celestial magic blasting these perverse Slaneesh warriors in all directions, just blood and carnage from both sides, but still they are holding firm. Granted, that did a ton of damage. Just look at the burst. And Volkmar the Grim is coming in here using his Grand Soulfire bombardment. He's going to rack up a ton of kills on these guys. So I do pull in some cultists right here to kind of support my main line, but still I'm taking a ton of damage right here, which is not good. And that warrior priest in the front line is helping to lead these forces on their crusade and is definitely doing a very good job of providing those kind of supplemental stats. So over here on the far side, back on the side of Italian Spartacus, you can see we have engaged here in the front gate, and where are they? My elite units. I'm trying to find those guys for you guys. But anyways, my troops are fighting here. They're kind of trying to hold the gate the best they can, but the greatswords are going to be a great counter pick to both my cultists as well as my warriors of Slaneesh. You can see they're actually cutting through, and with their very good armor piercing as well as their anti-infantry bonus, they're able to kind of beat back a lot of these warriors of Slaneesh, despite their very, very good offensive stats. Over here, Italian Spartacus is holding the gate as best he can, but he is taking a lot of handgunner fire. And even though the handgunners are slightly obstructed, you can see this is just a mosh pit of just death and destruction. But the handgunners are going to be very good because the warriors of Slaneesh do not have any true ranged. So we're going to be very, very heavy victim to that range fire. You can see the silver bullets are shooting in there and doing some heavy burst damage. Although this Chaos Lord of Slaneesh in the front line is just laying a smackdown on this light wizard right here, as they are very, very good duelists. The Chaos Lord of Slaneesh has 629 weapon strength right now, and he has popped the Delightful Pain, and he's able to push back that light wizard and almost break him from the battlefield. But still, the nets of Amnitalker drop down on these warriors of Slaneesh and are really pinning them, and that handgunner fire is just doing devastating damage to that Chaos Sorcerer and driving him back off the battlefield. Over here on the far side of the gate, Italian Spartacus' warriors of Slaneesh are actually winning this battle. You can see his riders and knights are holding off these Demogryph knights and these Imperial forces and keeping them from getting through. Also in the back, he does have some troops in reserve, so even if they're able to break here, they're still going to have to get through that champion of Slaneesh as well as these other troops. So a very, very even battle right now. And something about the balance of power that you guys probably noticed, the balance of power isn't really that accurate when you're using these modded maps because the power values of the units are a little bit off. Over here, the Chaos Cultists and some of these warriors of Slaneesh, as well as this champion of Slaneesh, are holding the gate the best they can. And you can see it's kind of modeled after a War Dancer, but she gets in there and just goes full on just karate mode on these guys and gets a massive chop and just takes out several of those greatswords and decapitates one of those spearmen. So again, she's a very, very powerful duelist, very quick and pretty good in this kind of a crowded situation here. Over here, though, Volkmar the Grim and his Crusade are doing a very good job, and one of the biggest issues is he has a ton of troops in reserve, and he also does have the Silver Bullets who are obstructed, but guys, he has a huge firing line set up here. So as soon as his troops are out here, as you can see they are, my Chaos Lord of Slaneesh, he has popped the Delightful Pain, which is poisoning them. He also does have that aura, which I imbued him with, which gives him, let's go ahead and take a look here. Actually, it did wear off, but it was giving him some negative debuffs on the enemy front line, and you can see the Slaneesh is blessed in here, just wreaking massive havoc with their 80 weapon strength, and I was able to tear apart that Imperial front line, and you can see there's only a few groups of spears, and also those riders of Slaneesh are throwing some spears in there from the high ground, giving us a pretty good situation. One of the biggest issues, though, is my lord got a little bit overzealous, and Volkmar the Grim is going to come in and ride him down with the chariot. So he actually gets full on run over, the wheels just going straight over his head. And Volkmar is going to be buffing all of these guys with the Grand Shield of Faith and all these other great abilities. So at this point, I did have to pull back my Chaos Lord of Slaneesh, who is very resilient, and thankfully he does have self-healing. And I didn't have to pop that yet, so I still do have that in my arsenal. But Volkmar is going to charge in here. You can see he's also using the Banishment ability, which is just tearing apart these heretics, just sending them back to the warp, just doing some massive, massive damage. You can see that my cav are getting torn to pieces, and my cultists are just going down like it's absolutely nothing. So very devastating stuff, and I'm sure Volkmar actually has quite a few kills. He actually already has 170 kills, and though I do have a lot of cultists here, I have a lot of elite units as well. My warriors of Slaneesh and a lot of other troops are just taking a massive beating from Volkmar's AoE, and that just absolutely eradicated my infantry line there. You can see the Lancers of Slaneesh are broken. My warriors of Slaneesh here are actually terrified from Volkmar, and this warrior priest in here is just laying an absolute royal smackdown on these warriors of Slaneesh, and my gates are starting to crack. The warriors are breaking. I still do have the Blessed of Slaneesh, but there's only 35 of them in the group, or 35 or 38, and Volkmar is just riding through. So you can see that my riders of Slaneesh, I decided to try and chase Volkmar down with their anti-large bonus and get him off the battlefield, but he is just going absolutely ham here with his chariot. So this is a very pitched battle on the far side, and one of the big issues is that my opponent has a very, very healthy firing line. The Gabo King has a Templar Luminarch, he has handgunners here, and he also does have the Silver Bullets, who have been obstructed for a lot of the battle, but once this battle clears up a little bit, now that my forces have been pushed back, he's going to have a little bit more wiggle room here, and once he starts targeting this Chaos Lord of Slaneesh, that's going to be really bad for me, guys. So you can see that the Empire Crusade is starting to break through our lines. Italian Spartacus's line here is being rode down by these Knights of the Blazing Sun who have came through, and he was kind of keeping them in reserve, and then they finally just pushed through, and they're just starting to lance down our infantry. A lot of our anti-large had been destroyed. My Lancers of Slaneesh, the infantry with the anti-large, were killed, you know, for the most part in melee, so they did wait to bring these units in reserve, and now they have pushed through and have destroyed our defenses here. Over here, Italian Spartacus's forces have done pretty well. You can see that these Riders of Slaneesh and the Knights of Slaneesh were able to hold this gate, but still the Empire forces are in pretty good shape over here. But Italian Spartacus is fighting tooth and nail over here with this Chaos Lord, and he is just kind of fighting with his cultists and just trying to defeat these flagellants who are just sticking to us and just not giving up. Again, they are unbreakable, whereas our cultists are not. So a lot of our forces are starting to break. A very, very good net of Amnitok here is doing excellent work, and you can see Karl Franz is coming in here to do battle with this Chaos Lord, and just look how massive the model is for this Chaos Lord, just warped and twisted by the blessings of Slaneesh. But Karl Franz is, despite the fact that he has like lower combat stats, Karl Franz has a ton of armor piercing damage. If we go ahead and take a look at his actual armor piercing damage, he has 290. And if we look at this Chaos Lord of Slaneesh, he actually has 275. So despite having such a massive stat differential there, Karl Franz does have more armor piercing damage. Granted, his armor is 95 compared to the 90 of the Chaos Lord of Slaneesh. Now in a straight duel, the Chaos Lord of Slaneesh would most likely beat Karl Franz, but still, you know, Karl Franz is a little bit cheaper. The Chaos Lord is very, very expensive. You can see the champions coming in here, the cultists and all these other troops are getting a great surround on Karl Franz. He's being surrounded by cultists and also this champion right here, and he's going to be taking a ton of damage. And you can see the Knights of the Blazing Sun pushing in, trying to rescue their emperor right here, and Karl is able to slip away from the grasp of those chaos forces. But you can see all of these other chaos forces, the warriors of Slaneesh here, unfortunately do not notice the mighty Karl Franz, but he is broken. He has 100 HP left, so we really need to kill him here to turn the tides of this battle, because Volkmar the Grim and those other flagellants and kind of that crusade over there has broken through the far side, and my lord, I'm pretty sure, has at this point actually been completely gunned down. So right now you can see the Tempelhof Luminarch shooting in here, and a lot of these Imperial forces have surrounded my Chaos Lord, and unfortunately that firing line is now in pretty good shape, and you can see they're shooting in there, just gunning down my troops. So as I'm trying to bring them back to the battlefield, they're just being gunned down, and one of the biggest issues is once my front line collapsed, it opened up this firing line here, which is rough. You can also see that the Tempelhof Luminarch, and I think Volkmar the Grim is riding around on his chariot doing some great work, but guys, Volkmar the Grim actually gets surrounded by my Riders of Slaneesh and some of my Lancers here, who all have anti-large. He is definitely surrounded. This is a very bad situation for him. He's down to 154 HP, so he's trying to get away. But these riders are incredibly quick, and they're able to take down Volkmar. So Volkmar has fallen, not before he did use his banishment ability. I believe that is Volkmar on his chariot. It's one of the abilities he can bring, but he does use that. But still, it does hit most of his own troops there, unfortunately. But guys, my Chaos Lord is not long for this world either. He's in here just fighting to the death. You can see just piles of bodies of both forces. Again, the Empire army being much more dense than ours, but the warriors of Slaneesh, having taken this handgunner fire, are not going to be able to last long. So right now, he just is going to get absolutely last samurai, and he just gets gunned down. Just a brutal slaughter from the silver bullets, those handgunners, and the Tempelhof Luminarch just purging the heresy and perversion from the land. So you can see the Empire Crusade is now pushing over. My forces have fallen on the far side of the gate. The Riders of Slaneesh are just in absolute retreat. Thankfully, I was able to get Volkmar the Grim, and that will definitely give my ally a bit more of a fighting chance over here. But you can see this gate has been breached, so this is kind of the last bastion of chaos. This Chaos Lord in here is just fighting off a lot of these spears. The Knights of the Blazing Sun, though, have come in and got a rear charge on these guys, so they're doing a very good job taking advantage of these guys in the fourth quarter here, just getting a great surround. So this is just looking like a very dire situation for the Warriors of Chaos. Granted, guys, Karl Franz has fallen. I believe this is him over here. No, that was actually a Slaneesh warrior, but Karl Franz has either broken off the battlefield or fallen at this point, if I'm not mistaken. They do have witch hunters. They also do have some other heroic units. They have a light wizard over here in the back, and I believe there is some other elite units somewhere over on the far side, at least for my Imperial side. So it's going to be really tough. So this champion of Slaneesh and this Lord of Slaneesh are just kind of fighting here in the pits. You can also see some of these guys are fighting against these cav, but it is looking very grim for us. And a lot of these Empire forces are finally pushing through the Great. Granted, they are very tattered. Now the balance of power, even though it's not the most accurate representation, you can still see we have 190 troops to the 776 127 of the Empire forces. So this is going to be very tough to come back from. Granted, Italian Spartacus does have a full health Chaos Lord of Slaneesh, and you can see he's going to get in here, and he does massive damage. And if I'm not mistaken, he does have a true anti-infantry bonus. So in this situation, this is exactly what he's designed to do. And you can see he's leading some of his corrupt troops here to battle and kind of keeping them in the fight. We also do have a Hell Cannon that's continuing to shoot in here and do some pretty good damage to the back line. But these great swords are simply just going to be too much for us to handle. Even though they're breaking, they're going to regroup. They do have heavy handgunner fire here. You can see the Witch Hunter has just been constantly using Accusation. You can see he did use it here on some of these Warriors of Slaneesh. So that's going to be very, very tough for us, guys. Unfortunately, this Templehof Luminarch is coming in. A lot of these troops are, I think they might have thought that we had some stuff on the high ground, so they were sending some troops to go look. But thankfully for us, we did not position any troops up there. We wanted to try and hold the gate at all costs. Granted, from a tactical perspective, I think if we had tried to, like, you know, leave some troops at the gate, just kind of an amount to jam up our opponents, and then we had held this high ground, I think that would have been better, because the handgunners and the Empire missile troops would not have been as effective on this high ground up here. So just, we will be doing more battles on this map in the future probably, so that's definitely something that we learned from this battle. Over here you can see this Chaos Lord of Slaneesh is able to actually force back a lot of these troops, which is just outstanding. So now they're going to go after this Witch Hunter. This champion as well as his Chaos Lord are just going to bring some serious damage. You can see that Hell Cannon shooting in there. So Italian Spartacus did move it to the back, to the high ground, and this is pretty much all we have left that's going to be fighting for us. Over here, my army is completely broken. Excuse me, a lot of tongue twisters this game with a lot of the units, but this Chaos Lord is going to push in. This Witch Hunter is just going to get the beat down right now. Some of these great swords do push in to try and rescue him, but this Chaos Lord definitely has a hard on for this Witch Hunter. And you can see, I think the Witch Hunter actually broke after one attack, because both of our armies are very, very tattered and are, you know, somewhat subject to army losses, as both Karl Franz and Volkmar have fallen in this crusade. So they really don't have a lot of leadership left. Granted, all we're really hinging on is this Chaos Lord. If he goes down, or we even lose a few of these troops, we're going to start suffering some serious army losses, and that's one of the biggest issues that we have going for us. So the Templehof over here is going to hopefully not, I hope it blasts this Chaos Lord. That would be hilarious. But it's at 8 leadership right now. It looks like it is turning around. I'm not sure if it's going to shoot this unit. I really hope it does shoot it in the face, but it looks like it actually does shatter. So unfortunately, the Chaos forces of Slaneesh have fallen. Everything is pretty much broken at this point. All we do have on the far side is this Hell Cannon, which gets a direct hit on that Templehof, actually. And you can see that Templehof just getting the Stormtrooper award, just shooting directly in the ground when it was trying to aim over here, which is pretty great. But again, guys, very well played to Italian Spartacus, the Gobbo King, and Black Iron for that awesome game. And it looks like the Empire Crusade, though you know, suffering the death of Karl Franz and Volkmar the Grim, has won the day. So guys, let's go ahead and take a look at the breakdown and see what units really performed. So you can see for me, the Chaos Warriors of Slaneesh did pretty well in the front line, but the Slaneesh is blessed. They cost almost 2,000 gold, guys. They are extremely overpriced. They only got 35 kills and just got massacred by greatswords. The Lancers did okay. I wasn't very effective at using them against the large units, but still, they definitely paid their dues. And guys, it was just a super fun battle. For Italian Spartacus, his Lord did pretty well, so did mine. I got 155 kills on mine. He got 81 on his, but he definitely lasted quite a bit longer. But the Warriors of Slaneesh were quite cost effective with their 55 weapon strength. He also did pretty good with Knights, so I definitely think I should have brought some of those guys. But his Hell Cannon did some serious work. So again, well played to everyone. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that battle. Let me know if you guys would like to see some more thematic battles. The next one we're actually planning, we have a Chaos Dwarves versus Dwarf battle that's going to be taking place at one of the Dwarf capital cities, which is going to be awesome. And then after that, we are planning to do a Norskin battle. So we're going to do like a Norskin invasion of Kislev. So guys, stay tuned. Got a lot of content coming your way. Thanks again for watching, guys, and have an excellent night.